welcome to Fabulous Friday, sponsored by the Buffalo County Historical Society Trails and Rails Museum. Today we're at the Buffalo County or Kearney Cemetery, and we would like to introduce Steve Baye, who's going to tell us a little bit about the history of the cemetery. Steve?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Steve Baye, and I'm the Cemetery Supervisor for the City of Kearney. I started work for the city in January 30th of 1984 as a facility worker. I became the Cemetery Supervisor October 1st, 1985. There have been many changes in the city cemetery in the 35 plus years that I've been here. We've tried to improve the quality of grounds and add more choices for the citizens of Kearney. We average about 150 funerals a year and sell about that many spaces a year also. We had one cremation service in 1984, the first year I was here. Last year, the cremation rate was 52% of our burials. So that is one big change that has happened since I started here. When I started also, about 90% of the people who I had services for did not own space when they died. So I had to sell space to the family, and that was a hard thing to do for some families. Today, I'm glad to say that about 95% of the people, when they pass away, already have their space, and probably half or more have their stones up already. This makes it a lot easier for the families, husbands and wives, whoever, to do this together. The history of the cemetery, the grounds of the Kearney Cemetery, was selected in 1871 and purchased by the city in October of 1875 for $800. Doesn't sound like much, but back then that was probably a lot of money. The ground at that time included all the ground that's Harvey Park now and all the housing here. That's even the cemetery clear down to 39th Street. At present, there are 17,976 burials in the Kearney Cemetery. That's with October 1st. So before Christmas of this year, we'll hit 18,000 burials in the city of Kearney Cemetery. Some of the oldest people that are buried here, the oldest date is Evan J. Norris, who died February 23rd of 1861. He was moved here in 1889 from Red Oak, Iowa. The oldest interment after the city bought the space, the cemetery, was on June 30th, 1874. The oldest burial, which I think is interesting, that's officially not in our records, Mary Esty, whose marker is just north and a little bit west of our fireman's marker at the front entrance, was buried in 1866. We believe she was interred here when it was a family farm before the city even purchased the land. Some other burials that are here that is interesting, there's 33 bodies that were transferred here from what was called the Dove Hill Cemetery, which is now where Kearney Lake is. That used to be a cemetery there, and they excavated that and buried all those here August 6th through 8th of either 1884 or 1889. The records are not clear. It's hard to read on some of those. None of these people have markers up there. In some of the old records, the interments are listed as unknown black male, or white, or Chinese man or woman. Some other points of interest or traditions that people might not be aware in our Kearney Cemetery. There's a marker out here for Amy Ketchum, who died in 1878. It states on the marker that he was a victim of the homesteaders and cattlemen's conflict of Custer County, Nebraska. According to the story, he was hung for being a horse thief, and he was actually lit on fire while he was hanging. As an example to others by a large cattle baron in Custer County. The sheriff at that time deputized men who had claimed they would kill him on sight, but he still deputized them to go arrest him. The Olive family, who was in Custer County, did not want any homesteaders on the land around where their cattle was. So they had him hung as an example to others that might try and homestead on the land. Also here, it's an interesting thing, I think. We have the wife of the man who built the engine for the Wright brothers airplane. His first wife died at a young age, was from Kearney. She's buried on her family lot. Her name was Henrietta Taylor. There's some of the traditions people aren't aware of out here. When the cemetery is set up, people are buried facing the east for the Easter sunrise. It was set up on an old church tradition. The man and wife on the old church tradition are buried in the same position they were married at the altar. The man is on the right. We have two baby lands, depending what kind of marker you want. A veterans section, a mausoleum for the public that you can be buried into for full bodies. We have two private mausoleums that are here, And we've built 4 columbariums since I started, 2 which are completely full right now. Some changes that have happened for the city since I've started here. There have been many changes in the 35 plus years that I've worked here. We've tried to improve the quality of grounds and add more choices for the citizens. We started a city tree nursery in 1984. We purchased small trees that are 12 to 18 inches tall. We grow them up to 5 to 8 foot tall trees and transplant them into the city parks, the golf course, and the cemetery. The city owns 2 tree spades that we use to do this. We started a Veterans Parade of Flags project in Memorial Weekend of 1984, which is 10 flags. And that's a beautiful project if you've never been out here on Memorial Weekends. We take the large casket flags from veterans' funerals, people donate the flags, and we raise them on steel poles, and we have them flying in the cemetery for the weekend. In May of 2019, we had 450 of these large casket flags flying. 2020, due to COVID, we only had 100 flags up because of social distancing and putting them up. We own 657 casket flags at this time right now, so every flag is not flown every year. If your flag wasn't up this year, it will be up next year. We opened a cremation garden in 1988. This is an area at the east end of the cemetery that has small 2 foot by 2 foot spaces that you can purchase for a lesser price. We computerized our cemetery records over the winters of 88 and 89, 1988 and 89. It took me 2 full winters just to transfer the information from the hard copy into the computer database. We installed underground irrigation in the cemetery in summers of 1989 and 1990. I went to class and learned how to design an irrigation system just to do this and save the city a lot of money. We purchased the equipment and installed it all ourselves. In 2006, we installed new irrigation controls that I now run the whole irrigation with my phone. In 1989, we developed a Veterans Memorial with a tank and cannon that used to be at Harmon Park were moved here. We have a Civil War cannon out there, and that's just across the street south of our Veterans section. The cemetery office, which used to be in the cemetery house, was built, the building we're in right now, in 1996. We moved into this office from the cemetery house. We've built several columbariums, as I stated earlier. We built the first one in 1999 that had 64 niches. That one is now full. Since then, we've added 3 columbariums. The last one we opened in the spring of 2019 that holds up to 375 interments, and that one's already 15% full. This is a very common way people are using right now. It's a 5-year plan to install another columbarium next to the front entrance, probably 2 years or so. The columbariums is the least expensive way to bury your loved one here. You can bury a small spot to put your urn in, and the space includes your marker, and it gives you a place to visit. We added a mausoleum, which is for above ground full body interments in 2006. This option is also less expensive than being buried in the ground for full body interments. When you purchase a space in the mausoleum, you get the vault and your marker as part of the cost. The cost of the mausoleum is from $2,200 to $3,750 for a single space, and from $4,600 to $6,600 for double space. In 2008, on June 29th, we had a tornado go through our cemetery, toppled many stones and took out a lot of trees. That was a big challenge to recover from. It was just after the Memorial Weekend, and it took almost all summer before we had all the trees and monuments put back into place as they should be. We added a kiosk directory in 2012 at the front entrance. This has saved me a lot of hours of people doing genealogy or just locating graves. I used to have to come back to the office several times a day to look up space where somebody's buried. And now a family can go to the kiosk, look up where they're at, and actually print a map to go to that grave that they can save. Something that we're adding to the kiosk is a veterans feature over the next couple months. And what this feature does is if you look up your loved one, it will have whether a veteran or not. If you look up your loved one and there was a veteran, like my father-in-law, it will show he was a Korean veteran. And you can also click on a link and it will give the history of the Korean War. So that'll be a really neat addition to the kiosk. Also, if your loved one had medals, we don't have that, but if your loved one had medals that they earned, if you bring those record of those medals that they earned, we will add that to the kiosk at no charge. Another addition to this new feature that this new addition is going to have is GPSing. The kiosk companies come out and GPS all of our grave locations over the winter time, and starting next year sometime, you'll be able to go to the kiosk, it'll give you the coordinates, and you'll be able to drive to the space using coordinates if you know how to use your phone, which I think is a really neat software update. In 2014, we added the Angel of Hope Memorial just to the right, just to the east of the main gates. There are only 137 of these bronze statues in the world. The statue and all the material was purchased by a group that raised money for the project, and the city donated the labor to install it. The bronze statue is a place for parents who have lost a child. It's a brick can be purchased with the child's name on it if you want to do that. It gives the parents a place to visit and grieve even if your child's not buried here in the Kearney Cemetery, and it's used quite a bit. If you visit that area, you'll see that the wall around it was built so you can have a place to sit and meditate and grieve if you want. Another big project that we've been on over the last several years is our cemetery beautification group. This committee has raised money to buy materials to rebuild and restore monuments in the cemetery. The city furnishes all the labor, and this group pays for all the material. They've also helped purchase many tools needed to do this project. They helped purchase a concrete bucket and a hoist to do this. This group has also purchased new trash receptacles. They purchased most all of them. You go out there, we used to have plastic trash cans around over there, and now it's a nice rock stone looking trash cans. Much improved. We have reset 427 monuments since this took place. Monuments that were leaning or broke off. Along this, in the last 3 years, we've did 82 Civil War monuments in the last 3 summers. We've taken all the Civil War monuments, we've raised them up, taken the concrete off of them, and reset them all with all new concrete so they're level and straight. It makes it a lot nicer looking, and it decreases our maintenance costs a lot. It's easier to take care of the maintenance without the grass around all of them. This group paid for me to take a class in Illinois in 2013 to learn how to fix marble monuments, in which most of the old markers are marble, and also the veterans were all marble. After I got back from that class, the first monument I tackled was a large monument that had over 100 pieces of it broken off and just laying in a pile around the grave. I brought it all into the shop, and it took me about 2 weeks working most of the time to reassemble all the pieces like a puzzle and then reassemble it out in the cemetery. It's still out there, and it's a very neat project to do. There's a lot of satisfaction doing that. It's improved, not having the stones broken, and it just improves the appearance of the cemetery. A lot of people don't realize that our cemetery became an arboretum in 2016. I went out and applied for it, and we've installed labels on quite a few trees out there, what kind of trees are here. Our most recent improvement is our front entrance. If you're familiar with the cemetery looked like, we used to have just 2 pillars since I've been here. One of them to the west was leaning quite a bit, and there was fear it might fall over. So the DAR, who erected the original monument, the original gates out here, raised money to reset and rebuild these pillars back to the 1926 design. In 1926, the budget was around $1,000 to do this project, and it was probably closer to $18,000 or $38,000 to do it this time. The DAR again raised the funds for this, and the city furnished as much labor as we could. You see now there's 4 pillars out there with little gates in between everything, and we've actually, in addition, that wasn't there originally, we went to an antique style light and got rid of the light pole out in front. This vintage area lights are pretty neat, I think, looking out there. Some future projects we're looking at for our cemetery is continue working on our veterans section and also leveling and resetting stones as needed. We're budgeting for a 3rd columbarium, as I said, by the front gates. And the next big project that we're looking forward to tackling, that we have a group trying to raise some money for now to help us with this, is we'd like to replace all the chain link fence with a black wrought iron looking fence. That's 5 foot tall around the south and east border of the cemetery. I think this would improve the appearance and aesthetics of the cemetery quite a bit. Be a nice addition. We have quite a few different rules and regulations at the cemetery. There's different areas that require certain kinds of monuments. Our memorial field and our cremation garden require flat with the ground markers of certain size. New trend, as we said, was cremations. A lot of people are putting 2 cremations into one space now, which we allow. The thing that this does do, though, is people who want a larger stone have to go with a taller stone. When you buy just one space, it's only 4 foot wide, so you can't get a very big stone that way. And you're trying to add a vase with it too, that also adds a challenge. But this is a new trend that people are working with. More people are also trying to use this cremation trend to be buried in old family lots. There's a process which to do this, you have to go through a burial permit or transfer of deed process, which you might have to find up to 20 or 30 family members to get permission to do this, but people are doing this so they can be buried on old family lots. And they're doing on top of parents or grandparents also with cremation process. Again, this makes a challenge of trying to mark the grave with some type of monument. There's no planting allowed out here, so we don't get trees and stuff out of place, but we accept tree donations. I get 3 to 5 trees every year donated this way. If you have a certain kind of tree you like, or you go in an area that doesn't have a tree, you say, boy, I like trees, but a lot of the tree areas are full. If we can agree on kind of tree, if you purchase a tree, we'll go pick it up and plant it for you. We get a lot of trees, donations that way. A lot of people worry about tree roots with the vaults and stuff. That is not a concern for families, because the tree roots are in the top 2 foot of soil. Tree roots also cannot live without air. So they stay in the top 2 feet, and the tree roots actually go out from the tree up to 7 times the height of the tree. But the vaults are 36 inches below ground, so the trees never get into the vaults. Some other rules we have out here, we've had to kind of watch with the schools nearby: no loud talking and yelling and screaming. Children under 15 are not supposed to be in the cemetery without adults. No littering, and no taking of any flowers off of the graves. A lot of people leave money or mementos or flowers out here, and unfortunately we get flowers stolen every year. A lot of that for Memorial Weekend, but there's not a lot we can do about it. We're only out here certain hours of the day, but we try and keep a watch. And again, if you're out here doing another activity, walking or jogging, we ask that somebody's visiting a grave not to disturb them. We have floor regulations out here, obviously, also. There's no putting of flowers on the grass during the mowing season. We have 5 general cleanup times a year: spring, which is usually in March, Easter, Mother's Day, Memorial Day, and Father's Day. We always do a press release before we have a general cleanup to pick up stuff. The biggest one that is always forgotten is picking up Mother's Day flowers, which is because it's so close to Memorial Day. But because we have so much work getting ready for Memorial Day, we ask you to get the flowers picked up, or we pick them up for you after Mother's Day, before we get ready for Memorial Day. Stuff we do pick up is anything that's on the grass. Any ceramic or plastic items or solar lights, short shepherd staffs, or shepherd staffs wrapped with flowers, and we also pick up all the dead flowers. Shepherd staff regulations that we've, in the last 5 years, has changed. They have to be a certain height now. They have to be at least 5 foot tall for legal reasons, liability reasons, and also we've quit having people wrap flowers around it, because every time we get a Nebraska thunderstorm, it takes the flowers and rips them off there, and we have a mess to clean up that next week afterwards. We keep all the stuff we've picked up for a month after these cleanup days. So if we did pick something up of yours, a shepherd staff or something, we have it for at least a month, usually 2 months. In a certain area, you can come up and pick up your flowers if you want. If you're missing something during the mowing season, if we haven't picked it up here, it might be in the nearest trash receptacle too. Also, my guys are trained to pick up and put them in the nearest trash can if it's there. Also, all of our regulations are on our city website. And talked about Memorial Day weekend out here. That's our big weekend of the year. We start early in the month of May by trimming bushes. We plant flowers. My wife and my kids and my daughter-in-law usually do all the flower planting over a long weekend and a couple of evenings. We try and plant over 4,000 flowers in about 5 days if we can. So it's some long days doing that, just evenings and weekends. We paint all the poles out here. We try and get all the trees trimmed, and we wood rip the whole cemetery on the Monday and Tuesday before Memorial Day. We start Monday morning at 7 o'clock and we go to 6 or 7 o'clock. You put an 11 or 12-hour day weed eating, you know you did a day. That's a big day of working. And then Tuesday we finish up, and then we mow the whole cemetery. A lot of extra hours put in getting ready for Memorial Day. We have around 7,000 cars usually go through the cemetery for the Memorial weekend. That's a lot of people visiting the cemetery. You figure 2 to 3 people per car. We have a lot of visitors come out here. And one of the main features of Memorial Weekend is our parade of flags that we put up. We talked about that a little bit ago. The parade of flags are casket flags that we put up. 450 of them. We usually start Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And then we also put up 450 of those, and we put up 1,800 small flags on each veteran's grave. Now, usually a small flag's forgotten every year because there are volunteers doing this. But if you forget your flag or somebody doesn't get it done, stop in the office. We have the small flags you can put on your veterans' graves. Last several years, we've put on 450 casket flags and 1,800 small flags in 45 minutes to an hour. So that really goes up fast. And again, that's Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. And then we take everything down Monday, usually starting at 5 o'clock. And we take down all 1,800 flags, pack them away, and all the casket flags are folded and put away. And that takes a little longer, but still only takes about an hour and a half. I mean, we usually get a lot of volunteers, and that's great. But all help is welcome. You can never have too much help to do this. Memorial Day service is usually Monday at 10 a.m. And we feel the City of Kearney Cemetery is one of the best cared cemeteries in the state. I've been part of the Nebraska Cemetery Association for 35 plus years now. And we often talk about the City of Kearney Cemetery we have in a meeting here. We talk about what's going on in our cemetery, and a lot of people wish that their communities would support and help their cemeteries like the community does here in Kearney. We've done a lot of projects with outside people raising funds. Our original kiosk, half the funds were raised for that. Our Veterans Feature is completely paid for by outside money. Our Angel of Hope was raised money. Our concrete trash receptacles and our monument repair work is all with outside money helping. And right now we have a group, I said, raising money to help replace the chain link fence to the black wrought iron fence. We have a great community here with the City of Kearney, and it's been a pleasure working with the city, and doing this job has been very rewarding over my 35 years I've been here. And I got another 4.5 or 5 years to work here, and hope to get a few more projects done, including in the close future here, about 4 years, we hope to add another 10-acre to the cemetery before I retire. So that'll be another challenge for me to look forward to. Thank you.